What's mental health?
He asks all the questions everybody wants to know.
It basically includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being.
You're driving me half out of my mind, you crazy old coat.
It affects how we think, feel, and act.
Oh my God.
Not just that, mental health helps to determine how we handle stress, and other things as humans. The Mind Clinic, a platform where people can talk about issues directly or indirectly on mental health.
Our guest on the show today discussing workplace stress is the program director at Neem Foundation and the director of training at Mandate Health Empowerment Initiative. She is a psychologist, adolescent and youth counselor, a relationship coach, and motivational speaker. As an SME consultant working with young social entrepreneurs in mental health and other fields, she's very passionate, and she's a passionate behavior change communications specialist, mindful coach, and a mental health trainer. All of this you get to find out in the course of the conversation. Our guest is Mrs. Sarah Chukwukere. Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get into the conversation that we always do. So for this month, we've been focusing a lot more on the workplace and mental health in the workplace, and touched on different topics: emotional intelligence, workplace abuse. And one thing that we never really talk about is stress in the workplace. We all agree that stress is going to be here with us forever. Stress can propel us to action, and it can also make us inactive and hold us back. And it's present everywhere. But let's talk about it in the workplace, seeing that this is an ever-present phenomenon, ever-present thing with us. It's very important for us to talk about it and learn how to manage it. So let's ask, when we talk about workplace stress, what are we talking about? What do we mean?
Well, like you said, stress itself is emotional or physical tension, response to tension. And then the workplace stress is basically when your job demands and the amount of control you have over those job demands do not tally. Now, the amount of control can vary from individual to individual. And there are some schools of thought that feel stress can be a performance inducer, but it can also be a deterrent to some people. So it all depends on the individual and their coping strategies.
So in layman's term, good stress, bad stress.
Yes.
So stress that's good, there's stress that's bad.
Yes.
Great. So what are the signs? What can someone see? What are the signs to tell the person or let someone know that they're experiencing stress in the workplace?
Well, signs vary from physical to physiological to psychological. Physical signs may include headaches. You could have constant headaches, or sometimes it could be persistent cold that refuses to go. That could be one of the physical manifestations of stress. Or sometimes you could feel a lot of tension on your upper back or your shoulders. That is one of the physical signs that you may be really stressed out. And it could even go deep as to insomnia. Sometimes people are not able to sleep at all. That is a very serious side effect, but sometimes people get there. And other symptoms, it varies from person to person. For some people, it's aggression, anxiety in the workplace. With COVID-19 pandemic especially, you find that a lot more people will actually be stressed at work, because you are at work trying to perform a service to people, but you have at the back of your mind that this person you may be interacting with may be positive, and there's the risk of you getting the virus and all that. So now, because nobody has a control on this virus, it could also increase the workplace stress some people are feeling right now. And that is one of I'm just giving you an example of a stressor that could, make someone anxious. And it even reduces, a lot of times, stress will even reduce the productivity of a person, because a lot of times your time management becomes bad. What you spend 10 minutes on, you could end up spending 1 hour because you're distracted and you make a lot of mistakes in work and all that. Yes.
Speaking about workplace stress, you've mentioned a couple in keeping with some of the signs.
Yeah.
What are the other what could the other stresses in the workplace be? What other things that could stress people in the workplace?
Okay. I would like to divide them into there are so many things that stress you in the workplace, but I'd rather divide them into categories. Mm-hmm. Now, for one, it could be interpersonal conflict. Colleagues, you and your colleagues quarreling, that can affect your work. Mm-hmm. When people, sometimes you say the person is not being professional and the person is bringing emotions. Now, if you're trying to get work done and another person is bringing their emotions, the person could even be stressed themselves. Mm-hmm. It could affect your productivity. Now, prejudice, tribalism, nepotism, that's when you feel like the people around you don't know the job they're supposed to do. It may add more stress to you because at the end of the day, if there are 4 people to do a task, you end up being the only one doing that task. And then that becomes a stressor. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing is, it's some offices call it multitasking, but some psychologists or mental health professionals will call it overworking. When you give one person too many things to do. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, there's not enough time in the day for the person to complete those tasks that the person will be reviewed on, and it becomes a stressor to the person. And another thing is physical discomfort. When you cramp 10 people into a particular space, mm-hmm. or maybe a desk that's supposed to have 2 people, you put 7 people there. Mm-hmm. And expect them to manage. Definitely, personal space someone will enter the other person's personal space, and even just physically, it's going to make the person really, really uncomfortable. Now, another major stressor in the workplace is when, like I said in the beginning of the show, when you have absolutely no control over your work situation. Mm-hmm. For example, if you normally work 6 hours a day and then increase your hours to 12 or 20 hours. Now, for one person, for example, let me use a mother. If there are 2 mothers and that happens to them, for one of them, maybe she has a housemaid and the housemaid can take over even though she's not going to be home early. She has a capable housemaid. She can call the person, okay, make food for the kids, do this, do that. And her husband also comes home early. He doesn't have a job. Now, she has some amount of control on the way that particular change is affecting her. Mm-hmm. So she can delegate some other tasks, even though she can't control it fully, but she has some control on the way to affect her life. Mm-hmm. Compared to a mother, maybe a single mother who doesn't have a house help and doesn't have a husband, doesn't have a support system around her. Now, if all her plans were to pick my son up by 6 p.m. from daycare, and the daycare doesn't extend past 6 p.m., that now will now constitute a serious stressor for her. Mm-hmm. Because she has because first of all, where's she going to drop her child after that 6 p.m. point or after those hours, for the extra hours that they demand? If she requests to work from home and she can't, that's still another way she could have controlled the situation, but it's not working. So that will constitute a serious stressor for her, mm-hmm. while it's not such a big stressor. It is a big stressor, but the other person has more control over it.
Does food contribute to stress? Because a lot of people have these arguments most times that what you eat could also be a major contributing factor to why you feel stressed at work.
Yes, diet and nutrition is a very, very important part of our health. Now, if you are not eating properly, you are maybe on persistent junk food and you are not having your fruits, vegetables, things that, I know that carbohydrates help release energy, but too much of that slows you down. Mm. And if you are not getting the exercise you need to burn that energy, to release the endorphins you need to perform during the day, definitely you're doing yourself more harm by slowing yourself down, because you are not going full cycle. When you eat, you need to burn that energy. You need to exercise to burn that energy, to release the energy you need to work. But when you eat a lot and then sit down or sleep, you are not going the full cycle that you're supposed to go. So yes, food can be a stressor, and food can, like weight gain or even extreme weight loss is also an indicator of stress. Yeah.
And I'm glad you actually talked about like some of the physical things that could cause stress, some of the physical examples of things that could cause stress, like a cramped space, which should not even be the case now, given the pandemic.
Or even noise.
Exactly.
Wow.
I was going to get to that. We take for granted other things like noise and smell and sight. And how much
try and work in the toilet.
Okay, no.
That just answered the question.
One day, just go and sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to do my work in the toilet. Make sure the toilet is smelling. Try it. It will convince you that smell can work. Exactly. Can be a deterrent. It's stressor.
Wow.
You won't be able to focus. Exactly. Even the ammonia from the urine, the smell of the ammonia will confuse you, put you in a state of confusion.
Okay then.
So I think that's like So definitely, I think it's something that we also we don't pay attention to.
Yes.
That your senses, you can overwhelm your senses and cause a lot of stress and make it very difficult for you to concentrate and do the work that you need to do.
Yes.
So then, how do we? What do we do? Given that the adults spend almost their entire life in the workplace and they have to work, they have to survive. How can we start to mitigate stress, and what can we do to help ourselves manage stress a little bit better?
Well, personally, I think there are two prongs. One has to come from the individual and the way you manage stress. In psychology, we call them coping strategies. And the other part comes from organizations. Organizations also have to actively make sure their employees are not stressed out. And I will come back to that, but let me tackle the individual first. For the individual, like I said, some people de-stress by exercising. I have an uncle that really, his job, he's in the force, and his job, he's in a desk that's really stressful. But if you watch my uncle play squash game, when he finishes, his t-shirt is soaked that he needs a bucket to squeeze the sweat out of his t-shirt. The first day I saw it, I was like, okay, this is serious exercise.
Yes.
And he says that's the only way he can de-stress with that kind of exercise. For some people, it's yoga or deep breathing, or sometimes if you find yourself hyperventilating, it's good to learn deep breathing exercises. You can perform it at your desk in 2 minutes, and your blood pressure or your heart rate will come down. For some people, it's a relaxing massage, swimming. For some people, it's something really physical like dancing or, maybe really running. Some people run to distress. In fact, a lot of people run to distress. So those are one of the physical, or you practice self-care. You just raise your hand, you run to distress. Oh, wow, that's nice. And that's one. Two, you talked about emotional intelligence earlier. Emotional intelligence is basically self-regulation. If you train yourself and educate yourself and you can educate yourself to be more emotionally intelligent, you can control the way another person affects you. What used to make you angry before, you see through it logically. And you even become more empathetic, and you say, oh, when the person comes, why haven't you done this, shouting and everything? Before you would shout back. But when you now train yourself to be emotionally intelligent, you can actually talk the person down and talk the person through their own stress and tell me, look, it's like you're stressed, calm down. Please, can we talk? I understand, yes, I agree with you, you are right. But can we talk, in lower voices? And that emotional intelligence is really paramount for the workplace environment because it helps diffuse situations that otherwise would escalate. And it helps you when I found emotional intelligence training, it was one of the best things that happened in my life because I used to get angry a lot. I was so temperamental, but it helped me regulate my own emotions. And it helped me practice self-check. Every time I will ask myself, okay, Sarah, are you angrier than you normally? Why are you really angry at this situation? Let's look at it logically. I ask myself those questions. If there's a situation where I quarrel with someone. After the quarrel, I go back and ask myself, how could you have handled that better? How could you have handled that situation without it escalating? And think through the steps that I went wrong that could have, made it a better outcome. Mm-hmm. And then another thing, there's something called the 4 A's that some people use to handle stress, which is either you avoid it. Someone is stressing you all the time, try and avoid the person so the person doesn't stress you. Or you alter it in terms of turning it around, like I just said, with the emotional intelligence. Or just accept it. For instance, if they give you longer hours and you don't have a choice, that's your only job. You accept, okay, this is it. Instead of grumbling, instead of complaining, thinking about how bad it's making you feel, accept it and start thinking about solutions. Okay, how can I now move forward and handle this thing better? Or how can I augment? And those things increase your coping strategies to help you. And then you adapt, which is the last A. You adapt. Now that's for the individual. Now, for the organization, a lot of organizations don't realize how much stress can affect productivity. Now, I have some facts that I jotted down, but this is from the American Stress Institute, but it's a stress survey on American businesses. Now, I don't know if there's anyone that has done surveys in Nigerian businesses and, white collar businesses. It's possible. No, and not anything is possible. Okay. So, but let me just give you this fact. It said, according to the American Stress Institute, 83% of U.S. workers suffer from work-related stress. U.S. businesses have lost up to $300 billion yearly because of workplace stress. Depression has led to $51 billion in costs due to absenteeism and $26 billion in treatment costs. Now, if you think stress, I brought this fact, so if you think stress can't affect business, by the time, just look at the COVID-19 example. If your workers are so scared to come to work because they feel unprotected and they feel like there's no PPE, personal protective, and you open your place of business and nobody shows up to work, imagine how that would affect your bottom line. And most of the time, the stress is mental because of the anxiety and the fear of catching COVID-19. So that alone has affected your bottom line and your business will do badly. But to mitigate stress, I think one of the major things most offices have to do is in their policies. They need to review and have policies like the zero tolerance for bullying. Because bullying can be a stressor when a supervisor, or not even when someone ahead of you or someone higher than you in the office bullies you, maybe does not review you properly because of a personal grudge or something like that, or having policies like reviewing employment. Sometimes offices, like I said earlier, have 7 or 8 positions and they cram it on one person, and that person is so stressed the person can't perform properly. So most in offices, it's usually their policies. And particularly important in some organizations is organizational culture. Now, organizational culture is usually not written down in a manual, but it's the way an office runs itself. It's the norm in that office that may not be written anywhere in policy, but can act as a stressor. Let me give you an example. Some financial institutions build up, and usually, if gone unchecked, the person just cracks one day. And so policy is really important. And organizational culture, if you have an organization where it's not collaborative but highly competitive, in that, workers do not support each other, instead they are always at each other's throats, that is definitely a highly stressful environment.
Yeah, definitely. One thing also we take for granted a lot of the time in the workplace is breaks.
Oh my God. And leave. Yes, and leave.
We take that for
Breaks.
granted. That 1 hour, you think it's just a waste of time.
Yes.
But it's not. It's there for a reason, you know. That 1 hour for a lot of people could just be walking down the streets to go and buy.
Exactly.
It could just be taking a breather. It could just be making a phone call. It could be taking a cup of tea or a cup of water. Those breaks come in, that time comes in very, very handy for people. But I'm not even sure why we really we don't really incorporate that into our lives, you know.
I really don't know why, honestly, because I mean, organizations, some organizations have this misconception that 1 hour you take is 1 hour wasted for them.
Wow.
Yes, that's why they don't encourage breaks.
Even the individuals also feel
Even the individuals.
Yeah.
But if you notice, sometimes when you are working at something, if you just take 5 minutes and just, look at the ceiling and come back, you have a fresh idea. Mm-hmm. And if you take 1 hour to yourself, walk around, it clears your head to come back with a renewed drive. It's just like a battery. Imagine using your battery without charging it. It's not possible. You'll keep using it. Or imagine if you use your battery, anytime it's 5%, you charge it for 5 minutes and come back. You charge it for 5 minutes. There's a particular amount of time you are supposed to charge the batteries and it becomes full. Most of the time when you do that with your phone, your battery dies fast. If your phone is supposed to last for 2 years or more, it will last only 6 months. And human beings are basically the same way. Everything in life, in fact, has a cycle. When to stop, when to start. And like you said, time off, leave. Some offices don't even think leave is important. Or they'll say, no, you can only take 5 days leave. You can't take, you've worked for 3 years and they can only give you 5 days leave. Only 5 days leave. You can't take more than 5 days now. Meanwhile, you have been working non-stop for 3 years. That is a serious stressor and it can affect the person negatively.
And also for the employers, for the employees, it's very important to use that space that you have been given, that break, and not take advantage of it.
And not do your side hustle.
Exactly. That's a good one.
Exactly. But if we even look at it critically in Nigeria, a lot of times the reasons we even take leave is, you want to go for a funeral, you want to go for a wedding, you want to attend something.
Which is stressful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because ordinarily, the reason why you should take leave is because you want to rest. Even if it's for 5 days, I'm not, some companies 10 days, or you're even entitled to your normal 18 days, you take it. I don't know if anybody takes full 18 days stretch.
Or the ones individuals do where they say, I'm on leave, and then you travel abroad, and then you start shopping and running around from the day you get to the airport to the day you get back. And then you need leave to recover from your leave. Yeah, because you have stressed yourself out so much. In fact, you've walked the distances because we all know abroad transportation is expensive, so you will walk. Mm-hmm. You will walk, or even if transportation is not expensive, just go to one mall. Mm-hmm. A mall can be like 10 kilometers, radius, and you will walk and walk and walk and even increase your stress. You're supposed to be on holiday, but instead of resting, taking time out, for self-care, you now add stressors. You want to buy everything and come back and sell to your colleagues.
You want to do business.
It's true. We have to just find a way to balance our lives at the end of the day.
You have to strike a balance.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just take a few comments on WhatsApp, take a few messages, and then we wrap up because of time. It's time to bring you into the conversation. Well, you can call us up. We'll see if we can squeeze in at least 2 calls. 0817-800-0947 is the number to call to be part of the show. I have this message here from Mohammed in Borno State. He says, good day, Rhythm. Wonderful conversation from your end. Organizations should please stop overstressing their staff because this will lead to nothing but low output of services. My question is, can exercise lead to stress? Yes.
If you over-exercise, and there's such a thing, some people use exercise as avoidance. When I say avoidance, you have an issue. At some point, you need to sit down and think about it. But you decide, okay, I'm going to go dancing now. Then from dancing, I'm going to go swimming. From swimming, I'm going to go this, I'm going to go that. Your body needs a required amount of time to rest and recover. And your cells, reproduce. The lost cells reproduce. Now, if you're over-exercising, yes, your body will be stressed physically and mentally because you need mental acuity to exercise. So you could end up being dizzy and falling over. And that's your body telling you, like, look, I've reached my limits. You need to rest and come back. So yes, exercise can lead, over-exercising can be a stressor.
All right, we'll take one more from WhatsApp. What fruits can help reduce stress?
Okay, fruits. I think it's usually a combination of, now, when you're saying fruits helping to reduce stress, I don't think that's exactly the way they work. But I think there's some combination of fruits, and I would not like to say this is on air. I am not a nutritionist.
Okay.
So, but from what I know, there's some combination of fruits that are relaxing, or fruits and vegetables, or spices, even spices and herbs. Sometimes even aromatherapy is relaxing. Now, relaxing reduces stress, and I think that's the way it works. It helps you relax, and then you'll be able to, detox and remove toxins out of your body, because those toxins cause stressors in your blood system. But you have to consult a nutritionist for that.
All right then.
100%. So my final question to you would be, we always talk about organization and employers, the employer-employee relationship. Yeah. How about the employees? How can we support each other as employees in a workspace to reduce stress?
First of all, being empathy. I think empathy is really important when you're working with your colleagues. You need to empathize with the person. You don't know what that person may be going through at home that is constituting a huge stressor, and they may be acting out in the office. And then, we said earlier on, I think the bottom line will be emotional intelligence training. Try, even if your office does not want to do the emotional intelligence training, it will help you as an individual. We all need to go and try and learn how to be better emotionally intelligent.
We must thank you very much for coming on the show, Sarah. You have touched on almost all aspects of it with very deep clarity. Thank you very much. We like that you came.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you for having me.
We'd like you to give out the email and the phone number, as well as the social media handles. And please do know that the Mind Clinic is a very special program brought to you by Neem Foundation.
So the number to contact us on is 0706 062 5054. I'm going to read that again. 0706 062 5054. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram at Neem Sanctuary. Facebook and Instagram, Neem Sanctuary. Send us a DM and we will respond immediately.
Psychological support only, yes.
Yes, only for psychological support.
Not financial.
Exactly.